Welcome! In this video we will look at putting some finishing touches to the file finding and searching utility from the last video with the PowerBasic Windows Compiler. This is the Find Files application we ended up with at the end of the last video. What we're going to do today is to do some finishing touches to this application and add a few things. At the moment there is no icon associated with the file and no icon on the top of the window. Also, I'd like to add some functionality in the list view to color code alternate lines to allow sorting and also to allow you to drill down to the files you actually find. Plus, the file itself, the application, has no version information stored in it. So that's what we're going to do first. If we have a look at the beginning of the application, now the source file is called find file, and compile exe will create an exe of the same name, so our executable is called findfile.exe. What we can do, we can override that. When this is compiled, it will create an executable called findfiles.exe. So we're going to add first of all our resource information, and in here we're going to paste in all the information we actually need to set up the version number of the resource. There we go. We set the file version number and product version number, which can be different or the same. The string info, if you're in doubt for any of these, if you have a look at the help, you'll find the help is quite useful in actually telling you exactly what each of these actually do. So these resource entries will set up your executable so that when it compiles it will have resource information. So if we compile on that, this information will be compiled into the executable. But in addition to all that, we want to add one more resource, and that is going to be an icon. Now you can actually name each of your icon resources with a unique string, and I have prepared an icon earlier which will compile in quite happily. So as well as compiling this in, Windows will take the very first icon you add in your resource list to be the icon for the application. So there's nothing extra needed to actually give your application an icon. However, we want to actually add the icon to our dialog as well. So if we nip to our dialog, down here before the dialog is actually shown, what we need to do in here is to set the icon for the dialog. That's so. So if we run this now, we will find that our application now has an icon associated with it, and it also has an icon on the top left hand corner of the dialog. And in addition to that, if we have a look at the code itself and right click on the application, look at properties, we will find in the details tab we now have all the details we put in: the file version number, the name, the copyright, and so on. So that's one thing completed. The next thing to do is we want to jazz up this list view slightly. So in order to do that, we have to set up a notification. So we go to the event handler. We'll find in the event handler we need to create a notification area. And this is where the code will sit that handles our notifications. Now there are a few variables I'm going to slot in here to handle what we want to happen with this list view, and I'll cover these as we go through them. So first thing you want to do, because you may have more than one control that's actually sending notifications, you want to pick up and make sure that you're handling just the one for the control you're after, which in our case is the IDC list view. Now we're going to pick up some values and store them. And this first one here is one of the ones we set up at the top, which is a list view pointer. And the next task is to pick up the type of event that's actually happening. So there's three events we're basically interested in. There's going to be the double click, when the user actually double clicks on the cell. There's going to be the column click, when the user clicks on the column heading. And the final one will be the custom draw, when data gets populated into the list view. So I'm going to cover these one at a time. What I want to happen with the double click is I want the application to allow us to look at the file on the line that the user has double clicked on and execute the Windows associated program with that file. So if it's a .bas file, it will launch PowerBasic. If it's a text file, it will launch Notepad. If it's a SQL file, it will launch whatever you've got associated to launch SQL files, be that Notepad or one of the Management Studio clients. This allows you to search out files and basically open up and have a look at them. So what we want to do in this is we want to get two pieces of information out. We want to get the name of the file and we want to get the folder in which the file is actually stored. So we're going to call the list view getItemText, and we will need a global handle to the list view, and we're going to be using a pointer. And the column number we're after, starting at 0. Right, okay, now we'll just fold this around so you can actually see everything we're doing here. And we're doing much the same thing for the other column. Now that will get us our path and our name of the file. Perfect. Now, having got the path and the name of the file, the next thing to do is to attempt to execute the file. Now, the file in itself is very probably not executable, but what Windows will do is it will attempt to open whatever the associated program is that displays that file. So we're just accumulating here the folder and the name of the file. And telling just to show it. Now the one thing I don't think we've done yet is I don't think we have declared a global variable. No, we don't. We haven't got a global variable for the list view yet. So what we'll do is we'll go up to our globals and we're going to create a new global. To reference the list view. Now when our list view is actually created, we'll find in here, there's our list view getting created, and we're getting the size of it. What we'll want to do is we'll want to store the global handle. And how we do that is using the control handle command. Handle to the dialog, handle to the object on the dialog, and we're storing that in a Windows unique handle, and we can then reference that later on. So having stored that, if we go back to our logic, then the event handler, this should now compile quite cleanly, assuming I've done it correctly, which obviously I haven't. Better if we name them correctly. Right, okay, it's compiling cleanly. So let's just test that logic out. What we want it to do is we want to run the application. We'll want to search out some files. And we want to double click. So the error we made there was the column number has to be 0 for the name of the file and 1 for the folder path. Now having got that logic in, our next thing to do is to handle the column click when the user clicks on it. So what we're going to do here is put into our LV data variable the information that we're going to be accessing, and we'll toggle the sort direction so that each time the user actually clicks on the header, it'll be first of all ascending, and then descending, then ascending, and so on. And then all we have to do is to test on it. So that will allow us to sort the data in the list view in situ in ascending mode. And we do exactly the same for descending. So that one piece of code should allow us to actually sort the entire list view by clicking on one column heading. And as we did in a previous video, we're going to colorize the list view on alternate lines. Now I'm just going to paste the code in for this one rather than type it all up. And explain what this is actually doing. Again, we're using one of the variables we set up earlier to pick up the lower parameter. We are then selecting, using a pointer, the draw stage, and for these two different events, the pre-paint and the item pre-paint, we're basically just returning the fact we're notifying we've done it. The painting of the row is actually done in here when these two are actually kicked in. Now we need a function to basically work out whether the row has been coloured or not. And this is one function we created previously. Again, this is doing nothing more epic than it's taking in the row number and doing a modulus on it to check the remainder. If the remainder is 0, in other words it's divisible by 2, then we return true, otherwise it's false. So in here, basically, if we run an even numbered row, we basically put a colour in. In this case, we're picking the RGB honeydew colour and text of black. And otherwise, for any odd numbered rows, it's going to be a white background and black text. Now, having put all that in place, if we try running our application now and testing this out, assuming I've typed something correctly. Should be a dot and not a comma. What have we missed here? We've missed a trailing bracket. Right, okay, that's compiling neatly now. Okay, so what we have now, we have our icon in place. We can now try searching out some values in our and do a search. Now there we go. We have the highlighting of the alternate lines. If we click on the header, we can now sort the columns, either ascending or descending. Any of the folders, any of the names. And if we double click on one of the entries, it will load up that specific entry and show us what's in the file based on Windows associated executable. So in this case, I've got the .sql files associated with Notepad, so they launch very quickly, so I can easily see what's inside every file. And there we have something that's a lot more user-friendly. So that completes the work we were going to do on this application. You feel free to compile this application yourself and use it for anything you find useful. Thank you for watching.